Let's talk about what you can learn from some of these big advertisers who advertised in the Super Bowl. We're going to talk about some of their messaging. We're going to talk about why they even did a Super Bowl ad. And I'm going to give you some honest feedback on some of the ads that I love, didn't love, and what you can learn from it. Like the whole point of this episode is for you to be able to take some of these little nuggets from these ads that these big companies ran and help you think differently about not only the advertising that you're exposed to, because I am going to challenge you to think a little bit about what some of these ads did, subconsciously even. And then I want you to think about how you can apply this to you and your advertising and your messaging too. So, a few things we're going to talk about today are going to be, how much was it to run a Super Bowl ad? What is the point of running a Super Bowl ad? And what can you learn? Before we do that, I want to share with you, if you've been listening to the podcast, you know that I am launching a book. You know that I'm launching a book, and a few of you have sent like the kindest messages about being a part of this book launch team. And so I'm only sharing this on the podcast. Like everybody who listens to the podcast, you know that something's happening and the book is launching. And I don't know that I've told you the exact date that the book is launching though. Okay. So you're going to be the first to hear it. Are you ready? The book is launching Friday, February 28th. And so if you're listening before Friday, February 28th of 2025, then I would be honored to have you as part of this book launch team. And so I'm going to send you a link below this episode for you to be a part of this book launch team. And I'm going to tell you something that's really, really cool about why you're not just like a part of a book launch team. And I am going to have so many more episodes coming up about how I've written the book, how I was able to do it so quickly, who helped me with that, and the whole process of self-publishing and advertising and why I'm doing a launch versus an announcement, because they are two very different things, by the way. An announcement versus a launch, completely different. And I want to share with you the strategy behind this so that if you ever decide to write a book, or even as you find people that love to learn from, write books, you can kind of have this in your back pocket as you think about the strategy. Because I don't know about you, but I just love learning like the why. Why did you do that? What was the intention behind that? So I'm excited to share all of that with you. I'm going to share with you the results, but I want to share this with you here first on the podcast. So it is so important that when you get your book, that you get it on the 28th if you're watching this live. And the reason we're doing that is because the way that Amazon works is you get to basically become a bestseller only when you hit a certain amount of volume during a certain threshold of time. And it's high volume and very small windows of time. That's why this specific day on Friday, the 28th, is so important. So if you are listening and it's before then, I would love for you to get your book on that day. It's going to be really special. There's a big goal. I'm going to share with you all the strategy and stuff later. But for now, just know that if you're listening, put it on your calendar. Friday, February 28th. I cannot wait to get to celebrate and launch this book with you. And you're going to love it. Something really, really sweet that happened. I don't know if I said this on one of the recent episodes, but my husband looked at me and he was like really impressed by it. He was like, honestly, this was better than I thought. He's like, I love you. And I knew it was going to be good, but he's like, this is good, really good. He even laughed a time or two. It took him about 3 hours to get all the way through it in one just sit down. So it was really cool. And then Laura Beth, my director of operations, she came to me and she was like, this is this is actually a good book. Like this is so cool. So it's been really special getting to hear that the hard work that has been poured into it. People are like, I didn't even know this story. I didn't know this part. I never thought about it like this. So I hope it does the very same thing for you so that you can really win with paid ads too. So I'll share more, but for now, put it on your calendar. And if you're listening to this and it's after February 28th, 2025, click the link below this video or this podcast episode, and you'll be able to get your copy of the book. So more to come. All right, so that was my advertisement for the book. Let's talk about other advertisements for people that were spending way more on their advertising budget to advertise their name during the big game, Super Bowl. So, few things. I have 8 specific types of ads or specific ads I want to point you to and just have you consider thinking about them in this way. And I also want you to really think about if you take a step back and put on your CMO hat, your chief marketing officer hat, and you say, what was the point of this ad? When you think about what is the point, what I'm going to ask you to think about is what was the message they were ultimately trying to deliver? What was the goal of actually doing the advertisement? And how did they want you to feel? Obviously, I'm sure you know this, but like when the advertising team sat down And they were like, okay, what do we want this ad to be? We're going to spend $8 million for 30 seconds. $8 million for 30 seconds. They were probably thinking, okay, we've got 30 seconds. What are we going to do? What are we going to say? What is the theme? And they probably started with, how do we want people to feel? Do we want them to feel inspired? Do we want them to feel sad? Do we want them to feel encouraged? Do they want them to feel, do we want them to laugh? Do we want them to be funny? Is it just to be memorable and be as crazy as possible? And people like be like, what in the heck was that? Like, what did they want them to feel? That is what they sat around the table and thought about before they thought about the actual story or message. And I'll tell you, they likely thought about where are we headed with this, and then how can we kick this off, right? You kind of go backwards. You're like, where are we ending up? What is the goal? And then how do we start it? And how do we hook attention from the beginning? So I'm going to share with you some ads I felt like performed well or did well, and then I'm going to share with you some that I did not think went so well. So, okay, let's start with Jeep. So Jeep paid, if you remember, I think it was what is it? Harrison Ford, Henry Ford. God, I think it's Henry Ford. I gotta remember the name. I don't know why I'm blanking. I think it's Henry Ford. Oh, some of you are like, come on, Ashley. But was it Harrison Ford? Let me look it up. Yes, Harrison. That's what I thought. Okay. So what was cool is Harrison Ford did the Jeep commercial. And did you see how at the end of the commercial, he was like, and something about like, I love the Jeep, even though my name is Ford. It was so smart, so funny. So here's what Jeep wanted, and here's what I loved about the Jeep ad, and here's how Jeep won. And I actually want to show you some math about why this $8 million dollars like can make sense, okay? Because they spent $8 million dollars, except for I think theirs was their ad 30 seconds or 60 seconds. I don't remember, but what I do know is they paid 8 million for it. So Jeep ran this ad. Some of you were like, why would Jeep do this? Like we all know of Jeep. You know about Jeep, but when's the last time you thought about Jeep? Those are two different questions. You may know something exists. You might not have thought about that something in quite a while. And so Jeep wanted you to actually think about how long they've been in business and the history that they've been able to create. So they even showed B-roll and footage of Jeep doing like from, I don't know, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago, however long it was. They basically were trying to convey the message, we're not going anywhere. You may not have thought about us in a while, but we've been thinking about you and we've been doing this for a very, very long time. And their ultimate message was you're in the driver's seat, like live the life you want. And they really wanted people to be searching for Jeep. And the whole point of the ad was someone sees Jeep. They're like, man, God, that car looks good. That the newer ones are just getting better and better. And they really just wanted people to go on Google and search for 2050 or 2025 Jeep. And so the moment I did that, their branded search campaign showed up. What is a branded search campaign? A branded search campaign is when Jeep is protecting their own brand by having their ad at the very top of search results on Google for when someone searched Jeep 2025. And so I imagine, I mean, I don't know this for a fact, but I imagine that Jeep as a company, like their advertising team said, make certain we have an unlimited brand budget for the Super Bowl day. What does that mean? That means I don't care how much we pay on people searching for our brand. We want to own it. We don't want, Volkswagen or Ford or anybody else coming up. If someone searches Jeep, we want to own it as much as humanly possible. And so I bet they were like unlimited budget. I imagine they set their daily budget for the day for at least $100,000 to capitalize on the demand for people that are like, oh, I wonder what the new Jeeps look like. Let me just type that in. And then they go to their website. Well, what happens once they go to their website after they've searched in Jeep in Google? Well, they get retargeted. How? Because when you land on someone's website and they have a pixel, that means they can track and retarget the people that recently visited their website. It's all a machine. Like the Super Bowl ad, they don't just do a Super Bowl ad. They do a Super Bowl ad and a branded search campaign and a retargeting campaign, and it works like a well-oiled machine, right? And so I imagine somewhere on the Jeep page that there's like an opportunity to be like, be the first when we release our next Jeep and get on the email list. And then they're getting nurtured via email. There are so many opportunities for Jeep to have multiple touch points simply because it created that the advertisement placed or created search demand. That is why they did it. And so if you think about the fact that they spent $8 million and you think about how many people were watching the Super Bowls. Let me do that math real quick. How many people were watching the Super Bowl? Okay, so 127 million viewers. Okay, 127 million people. Okay, so if you think out of 127 million, what is 1%? 127 million. Okay, let's see if that's enough zeros times 0.01%. So that is, yeah, 1.2 million people. Duh, Ashley. Okay, 1.27 million people. So if 1% of people were like, I want to go look and see what Jeep's got going on. Okay, let's just pretend that of that 1.27 million people that were actually like, you know what, I am kind of, I'm kind of looking for a car. I've been thinking about Jeep. If that 1.27 million people kind of had high search demand, let's just pretend like 30% of those people were very, very serious about getting a car. So now we're talking about 30% of 1%, which is a third of 1%, right? So uh, that is, I did that math wrong. Hold on, I'm going to get this right. 1.27 million times zero point 0.3 is 381,000. So if 381,000 people are extremely serious, like, okay, not only did I search for Jeep, but like I literally do want a car pretty soon. Okay, so that's 381,000 people. Let's pretend a third of those people actually say, I'm getting a Jeep. Okay, so if we say 381,000 times 30% of those people, I am doing some sort of math wrong. Let's do 381,000 divided by 3. So let's say a third of those. So one, hold on 1 second. Oh, I'm doing an extra zero. All right, so that is 126,000. There we go. So that would mean 126,000 people are like, I'm gonna probably get a Jeep. And the average cost of that new Jeep, let's just pretend is $80,000. So that is such a big number. I don't even think I can do it without seeing the zeros. But basically, it's one, two, three. That would create one, two, three. That would create like over $1 billion if I'm doing this math right. Like, do you see how when that many eyeballs are on something, even if a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of people buy this $80,000 vehicle, even if it's not today, even if it's later this year, that $8 million spot could create $1 billion in revenue. It's like, oh, that's a tenth of the revenue that it could create. Of course, we would pay 8 million. You know what I mean? So that's where the math comes into play, and that's how it all works together. And I'm sorry that math took a little bit for me to get there, but the whole point is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction can create $1 billion. You don't need, for those of you that are a real estate agent, or for those of you that have coaching or consulting, or for those of you that have like a retainer fee every month, like you have the opportunity to have pretty high revenue. And some of you have a volume play, some of you you've already got the volume and the pricing, so you just need a very few people. And it's like you should be willing to spend more on your advertising, just like Jeep did, because you know the math will math out later. Like, stop getting attached to, man, I have to spend $5,000 a month or $25,000 a month or $50,000 a month. It's like, yeah, and it'll probably make you 100 or 200 or $300,000 when you actually spend what you know you should spend to advertise what you have to offer. Well, you're just scared because the number's big. And it's like, I get it. You're having to catch up to like big numbers because we're all like, we all start somewhere. We all start so small. And then we're like, oh, it actually requires money to make money. You say that, but do you believe it? Spend the money. That's what Jeep did. All right. So let's think about something else. I don't know if you realized, but five of the biggest alcohol companies advertised. In fact, when you look at like what were the best ads and you really think about the people that spent the most money were people who sell alcohol. And and here's the thing, let's be clear real quick before I go into this, because I just want you to think about this differently or consider it. I got married at a vineyard. Okay. I'm not saying I took a little bit of a break from alcohol. I think I shared that on my one of the earlier podcast episodes. My husband loves a good beer or a good bourbon, and I think that is awesome. I personally found that when I drank, did not just want to have one drink. I was like, I wanted to have multiple when I did. And I always felt worse the next day. I couldn't get the weight off. And I was like, what is this? Why do I have headaches? Why am I irritable? I just decided to take a little bit of break for myself. And I'm not saying I'm not ever going to have another glass of wine, another glass of champagne. I'm not saying that. I'm just choosing to be a little bit more self-aware about like what alcohol is. And I've done some research. So if you want to do your own research, let me tell you the two things that I did. I went to the Dr. Huberman podcast and listened to some episode he had on alcohol. Okay. So if you want to Google Dr. Huberman, he's a doctor at Stanford, I believe. And he just like gave factual science-based stuff on alcohol. And I was like, well, never knew some of that. And so that was helpful for me. And then I read This Naked Mind. And it's a book, it's an audiobook. And I learned things about alcohol because I'm gonna be honest, I'd never sat around and be like, let me actually study alcohol and understand its effect on my body. I'm kind of like, I like holding a glass and it's fun and I feel a little loosey goosey. Like, I don't want to go learn about the bad stuff. I don't want to, have a negative connotation against alcohol. So I was kind of like, I did a little research, got a little educated. It changed my perspective. I mean, doesn't education do that? It changes your perspective. And again, I'm not counting it off for the rest of my life. I have just chosen to go a little while without it. All right. So when I come to you with this, it's just because my perspective is recently shifted. And so I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, wow, wow, wow. Let me look at the messaging that these advertisers had about alcohol. And man, when I started really researching this, I was like, kind of shocked me. But every one of these advertisers, Budweiser, Stella, Michelob Ultra, Bud Light, and Coors Light, you don't want to know one thing they had in common with their advertising. It was fame. It was fame. They did not have just anyone in their ads. They had famous people in their ads. And when you think about fame, it's like being known. Like, don't you want to be known? Like, I really believe with your ads, I want you to be famous for what you do, right? And what they were selling was fame. Like, look at these famous people that are doing all these things, making all this money. Don't you want to be like them? They're drinking. They're having fun. They didn't show a single, of course. I mean, of course. It's like the advertisement is going to advertise like what looks good and feels good. They're not going to advertise a drunk driving incident. They're not going to advertise a hangover. They're not going to advertise the headache. They're not going to advertise the regret. No, let's talk about only the good. The famous people are having fun. And like they're like, oh, if you want to be the best and kick the ball the furthest, like David Beckham, have a drink. You want to be the best in Michelob Ultra and playing tennis and sports and being competitive, have a beer. It's a reward. Drinking is a reward, and the famous people do it. I'm just saying that was the messaging. Like if you take a step back and look at it, it was being the famous, kicking the soccer ball the farthest, being the best, the rich and famous. Why not you? And oh, for Coors Light, don't you hate Mondays? Don't you hate going to work? Well, at the end of the day, the good thing you can look forward to is alcohol. It like blew my mind. I'm like, they're not, it's like all these other things that are showing the positives, but it's like with alcohol, I just thought it was quite interesting to really think about what are they messaging? And God, they're spending a lot of money because they really want you to buy a bunch of alcohol because it's the good, right? So just something I thought was interesting. I'm gonna stop going on that because it was just different perspective. I'm gonna keep rolling again. It's not to say you won't find me with a glass of wine in my hand at someday. I'm definitely not saying that. I just think it's self-aware of us. I mean, so many of us are becoming more self-aware of, you know, our body and our mind, what we put into it. And I just think you should be self-aware of the advertising and the messaging so that you're like not getting sold on something that like you might not want to get sold on, right? So, all right. So then a few other things. So T-Mobile and Starlink. So that ad, if you go on Google Trends, it spiked search demand like no other, right? So what I mean by that is people were Googling Starlink and T-Mobile, Starlink and T-Mobile. It had like, what was the Google Trends? I think it was like over 1,000% increase in search volume, if not more. What that means is people were like, how do I get T-Mobile and Starlink? How do I do that? And again, it's an opportunity for T-Mobile and Starlink, that partnership, to retarget you with those messages. And the reason for that is because of the law of familiarity that says what we are more familiar with, we move towards. And so that was like the first spark. And then you're going to continue to see Starlink and T-Mobile, Starlink and T-Mobile. And the more that you see it, the more you'll be like, oh, that's what I want. Right. So I thought it was really interesting just how that commercial alone had one of the highest increases in actual search volume. People were like, I'm in, right? Because it's a lower price than the Jeep. Like less people searched for Jeep than they did T-Mobile and Starlink because they said specifically that any phone service provider could benefit from this partnership. It's like we're gonna do it on your network. We're gonna help you have, service where there is no service. And the cool thing about that ad is like they showed you all the times that you are frustrated that you don't have service to like sell you on like no matter what you have, like we're gonna give you service anywhere in those critical moments. I thought it was very well communicated because it highlighted and illuminated a problem that oftentimes we ignore. It's like, well, you just can't have service here. Well, you just can't have service here. And they showed those moments where it's like, God, you really want to have service. Well, now there's a solution for that. And it's going to be on any network. Like, what? It was so cool. So, so cool. So that created a bunch of search demand. And I imagine that we're going to get advertised and advertised and advertised again more from that partnership and just be on the lookout for it. All right. So the other ad I wanted to talk to you about was the Chat GPT ad. So gosh, I didn't like it. I thought they could have used their time so much more wisely because the selling point of that ad was all progress has a starting point. That was the tagline. All progress has a starting point. And what they did is they were talking about how all progress, like in the past, like when we went to space, when we, you know, made it to land, all these other things, they were really talking about all progress starting from a long time ago. But I just think ChatGPT is so powerful. I use it nearly every day. And I was just thinking about how cool it would have been to show that all progress starts somewhere in today's world. Because with that ad, in my opinion, one of the ways that they failed is the only reason I kept watching it was because I was taking notes on ads because I'm an ads girl. I'm your ads coach, ads with Ashley. I like hashtag have to watch the Super Bowl. I would say have to, but like I got to, and I like was sitting there so happy, like scribbling my notes, right? But I was like, I would not keep watching this. This would be when I go to the restroom. This would be when I go get a snack. Like, I'm not going to watch this. It's like all these things on the board. Like, what is this? Who is this for? I just didn't think it was attention grabbing enough. And I thought it was very outdated because it was talking about past progress versus current progress. Because ChatGPT, one of the things it does is it speeds up how quickly you can make progress on something. And I feel like they could have done a significantly better job just showcasing that. So that was my thought on ChatGPT. Lay's. Okay, so arguably, Lay's chips, when consumed frequently, are likely not like the healthiest choice. Don't get me wrong. Love a good Lay's chip. Crunchy, crunchy, salty, salty, yummy, yummy in my tummy, right? Love a good Lay's chip. And so, arguably, if you really think about it, okay, I know I'm kind of going on another tangent like I did with the alcohol situation. With Lay's, arguably not a smart food choice, not a good food choice, but you know what they did? They made something bad look good. And they reminded us where the bad comes from, and it comes from something good, a potato. Like the chip itself is not bad. It's just like when consumed in bulk, like the actual nutrients in there aren't like the best for your body. But like what I love about even the program that I use for my weight loss, which is Faster Way, and I'll link to it below if you've never heard of it, but it's what I do every morning, did my workout. It's how I do my counting. It's how I've lost my 60 pounds since baby. Okay. And like the cool thing about Faster Way is like I had an ice cream sandwich last night because I love the Skinny Cow ice cream sandwiches. So yummy. Like ice cream, arguably not the best in bulk. Lay's, arguably not the best in bulk. But what I love about it is it reminded us of the good thing that it comes from, and it made us feel good about that thing with the little girl with the potato, the little farmer with the potato. It was a very well done commercial. And I think like because we care so much about our body in this in like today we care so much about what we're putting into it, seeing something come from the ground and be nurtured and cared for by a human, it like made you, it's like, oh, maybe Lay's isn't that bad. Maybe I should like go get some potato chips. It's nostalgia. This girl's worked so hard getting these potatoes out of the ground, and she's so cute, she's so happy, and potatoes are good, right? Like let's get it. So I just thought it was brilliant. And it legitimately, like I'm probably gonna have a bag of Lay's in the next week just because of the commercial. I just want them to get a little bit back because it was just so well done. I like to give credit where it's due, and I'm like, I'm gonna go buy the chips. So I thought it was really good because they took something kind of maybe not as good and put it in a positive light so that you would have a more favorable like view of the Lay's potato chips. So good. All right, so the other ad I want to talk to you about is I think it's called Novartis. It was the one about boobs. It was the Your Attention Please commercial. And I actually thought it was really cool because like I guess I can say breasts as a scientific name. Breasts obviously get attention. Like we know that is part of the human anatomy. I mean it's a beautiful part of the body, right? And I thought it was really cool how they use like the fact that it does draw attention to itself to like use that as the very reason that you should pay attention to your breast because of breast cancer and what can happen. And I have had personally someone in my family, actually my grandma, had a breast cancer. She's no longer here today. She had cancer that was in her breast. It was in her, I think it was called liposarcoma. It was like cancer that developed in like the fatty tissue of her like thighs and butt and all and some other areas too. And it spread and it was so terrible. So big fan of like supporting like cancer research and all these things and the awareness of the self checks. I don't know if I ever share this, but I had a lump in my breast. Actually, when I was younger, I was probably like 15 or 16. It was like hard as a rock. I'm like, what is this, mom? And we went to the doctor. I had to get like this like needle go like sideways into my boob to like suction cup some of the tissue out, take it for testing. And it was benign, but then I had another like mole on my breast. I'm like, stop chipping away on the little bit of skin I had before um, I got an augmentation. And I basically had like precancerous cells. And so I've had to have a few spots on my body like removed, which is why I wear sunblock. So anyway, I could go on and on about this. Let's go back to the point. The point is, I really thought it was very well done, saying like, "Hey, your attention, please. Let's pay attention and like make sure that we're doing self checks and taking care of ourselves and just keeping an eye out." So I just thought it was really, really well done how they positioned it because it was very attention grabbing. It's like, why is everybody looking at the boobs? Like, of course, we're like, what is happening? Okay, what is this about? Why are we talking about boobs? And they pinned it back. So I thought it was really cool because it got your attention, and then it was all about like giving attention to taking care of yourself. So anyway, thought that was really well done. And then also, I don't know if you noticed this, man. I was on the prowl on Super Bowl. I was loving this. But what is it called? Like Inception, where it's like, or you know those little dolls where it's like there's a doll and a doll and a doll and a doll. I'm gonna make up a name, so I'm not because I'm probably gonna jack it up. But it's where you see something in something in something. Well, the Instacart ad was an ad within an ad within an ad, and I don't know this for a fact, but I would be willing to bet lots of dollars that Cheetos, Mountain Dew, and Dr. Clean were like, hey, Instacart, I'll chip in for this ad on the Super Bowl if you'll make sure that when the bag is delivered to the doorstep and like Kool-Aid was in there. I think there was a few other like partnerships that where these other brands said, let's go all in on a Super Bowl ad for Instacart and get people to remember to get their Kool-Aid, their Mr. Clean, their Cheetos, and their Dr. Or Mountain Dew. I didn't even know Mountain Dew was still out there, but it is. I used to be obsessed with Mountain Dew long time ago. Anyway, so I thought that was really like something for you to think about is who all paid for that ad, and I bet that it was like a lot of those coming together for that Instacart ad, which is really cool. It's like all the brands you love at your door. Really good ad, just for attention. And then the Rocket Mortgage. I thought that ad was really well done. And the reason I say that was because their message was about owning the dream. And what I loved about it is they did not just telling, but showing. And it's something you can think about for your advertising too, is how can you not just say something about what you do, but show what it is that you do. It's why I love video testimonials or even a picture of someone with a testimonial better on an ad than I do just like you like putting the text. Like Susan said she loved it. It's like, well, I would love to see Susan and it would be really cool if I could like meet Susan. Like, can you put Susan in the ad? That just gives so much credibility and I just feel like people you can't have too many testimonials. I feel like that's one of the reasons this business has grown at the speed that it has is because when people win, I share it. Like it is like a default habit. It's like when someone sneezes, you say, God bless you. When someone submits a testimonial, I'm like, and screen capture. And let's get a video of this. Let's get your honest feedback. I'm like third party validation is so top of mind for me that it becomes automatic, like after my VIP days. As long as I feel like they go well and all of them have gone exceptionally well, I'm like, hey, would you mind sharing about today? And they're like, absolutely. And it's like people want to support you. People want to help you win. And when you help them win, why would they not want you to win? Most people are good people. There's some crazy people out there. Don't you be deceived. I've experienced some of them, but for the most part, like people are going to be good people. So just make sure you capture that feedback and as quickly as possible. Like don't wait. And if you do, listen, even if it's 3 years ago, it's better to ask them for a testimonial today than it is to not. I'm just saying, like, make that be a part of your strategy. But owning the dream, I love that they showed and told. And like that song, it was just so well done. It was like, take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia, all that. It was like such a good song with the visual. And their goal was like, I want them to feel, see, experience, and breathe the American dream, which is owning your home. Like that's the message that they were choosing to convey. And I was like, let's show them like there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the world, but what really matters is like having a place to call home, and you deserve that, and we can help you get a home with Rocket Mortgage. Like that was the message. And what's so cool is because they did it so beautifully, they didn't have to say it. Like they literally didn't have to say Rocket Mortgage can help you, blah, blah, blah. Or I don't know if they even did, but like the message was so strong and so visually compelling emotionally that it like had you probably have a more favorable view of Rocket Mortgage and had you like think about like what it really means to get home and be at home. So I thought that was really, really, really special. And so if you were looking for a mortgage to see something like that in the heat of the moment when you're like really wanting it, like I would totally consider like going and Googling Rocket Mortgage. Granted, I have someone that helps me with mortgages, so I'm good, but just thought that was really well done. Okay, so I hope that was helpful as you start to think about these ads. So let's summarize kind of what you can take away from this. Number one, think about how you want to make people feel in your ads. Number two, think about the messaging that you're conveying in your ads. Like, what is the ultimate message and how can you get their attention quickly? All right. Don't pull a chat GPT and save it for the very end, right? How can you make something relevant? How can you show and tell what you're doing? How can you use third party validation? Is there, and let's see a few other things. How can you use ads to create search demand and public service announcement? If you're like, oh, how would you do a TV ad or a YouTube ad and a Google search ad like Jeep and retarget them on social media and grow your email list with ads? I just want you to know that is the very thing that I teach that you will learn not only in the book that I have coming out on the 28th, but also in the Win with Paid Ads Challenge. So there will be a link below this video so you can register for the next challenge that is coming up. And also, when you get your challenge ticket very soon, you're going to be able to also add the book to your cart. So you can get a double whammy and get both. And really, you can win with paid advertising. And one of the things that I love is that you do not have to put all your eggs in one basket. A lot of people teach just organic or just Google ads or just Meta ads or just YouTube ads or just grow your list with email or just X, Y, and Z. And that is one of the reasons I feel like what I've created is so unique is because I really don't believe that you should put all your eggs in one basket and that you should know how to advertise strategically and holistically. And what that really means is you can be found no matter where your people are automatically by new people every single day. So if you feel like you're waking up and talking to the same people every day, just know that you do not have to do that. You don't have to post and pray. You can target the right people every single day. And they can find you in your business. And when you do advertise your name, you can make it rain in your business too. I cannot wait to see you on the next episode, and I'll see you there.